Hello everyone. Welcome back. This is my channel. Usually Mocha Fitness is pretty much about fitness videos. I have been a little bit absent from my channel, but I do still have some awesome workout videos on my channel, and I'll be adding more content about fibroids, and I also have my fibroids hysterectomy story playlist for you guys as well. Today's video, however, is going to be about my fibroid journey. From diagnosis to hysterectomy. So I might be looking to the side a little bit so I can review my notes, but I really just wanted this video to be informational and just an account of my story. And then if you would like to look at some of my previous videos and more to come, it goes into more detail about the surgery itself, my recovery process, and I'm still in recovery and whatnot. But this is just to tell my story because I think it's important. I found a lot of stories on YouTube and also panels and discussions. And I think they all were helpful for me. And many of them really did help me kind of prepare myself to know what's to come. I don't like to be surprised with these type of things. I have a very stressful life, and this is something that I've been stressing over, having to go through with, and I wanted to be informed as possible. And just knowing what's to come and looking at different videos and just taking notes at things that I should have for prep or symptoms that I may have been experiencing myself and was like, oh my God, that's fibroid issues. I didn't know that was due to my fibroids. And just getting the information out there, I think especially as Black women, since fibroids are major symptomatic in Black women, and we have a higher rate of having to get our fibroids surgical intervention for removal of our fibroids, and more historic of hysterectomies due to fibroid. Some of them could have been prevented, and a lot of them were not, due to disparities in lack of education about fibroids in the African American community and diaspora. So I just wanted to put that information out there first before I get into my personal fibroid journey. So the beginning. Okay, I first found out I had fibroids during my second pregnancy. I started my family pretty early in my 20s, and I had my second daughter when I was 24. And during my ultrasound exam, I was told I had fibroids. So like many of us women, we don't know that we have fibroids until we get pregnant, and there's a reason to actually look inside of the uterus. The doctor told me that, oh, they're fibroids. They're just little growths that happen in the uterus. They're non-cancerous, and that mine were very small, so nothing to worry about. So I didn't. They were like almond-sized, small. Oh, nothing. They're just growths. That's all they said. Nothing to worry about. And after pregnancy, I gave birth. I went on with life and never thought about it again. My periods were regular for years, normal. 4 to 5 day cycles, like literally like clockwork. No big cramps or anything. I was always very active, exercised a lot, so that helped to regulate my cycle. And not have very heavy menstruation. It didn't bother me at all. So fast forward, the first time of rapid growth. So when I say everybody's story is a little bit different, here's how mine's differ a little bit. I did not have any symptoms of heavy cramping and bleeding. I didn't have none of that for over 10 years. So I felt, okay, there's just little growths, like if you have skin tags or something. The doctors never explained to me that they were tumors, non-cancerous tumors, but that can grow to extremely large, massive sizes, and that can cause complications throughout your life. And that as an African-American woman, it was possible that I was going to have issues later on. It is possibly something that they need to keep close. I never, ever explained this to me as if it was a medical condition. Just that they were like something like a skin tag or moles. Like literally, oh, they're just little growths. So I digress. Going on to fast forward 11, 12 years, which during this time I had overcome lots of stressful things happening in my life. I went through a messy divorce, becoming a single mom, having to work 2 and 3 jobs, going back to school again, all of those things. And then to top it off, my father passed away unexpectedly. He had cancer. It was gone. Then he was cancer free for a great while, and it came back highly aggressive, and he passed away unexpectedly after we had just bought a house together. And he didn't tell anybody that the cancer came back, but we went through this whole situation. And then I finally was on the upside of getting over these things, and my boyfriend at the time, he went on with getting married, and we have a child. So after we got married, I got pregnant with I got pregnant before we got married, but we were planning to get married, and we had to cancel it 2 times, and the second time was because my father had got sick and I wanted to put it off. But anyways, I got the ultrasounds, right? So, and that was the time when the doctor saw that I had several new fibroids, and some that had grown to 2 to 3 centimeters. And each time I got an ultrasound during pregnancy, they saw a change in size each trimester this time. So they were like, okay, 2 to 3 centimeters they're getting larger, but not too much. But there's also several of these little seedlings and almond-sized ones in your uterus. And we're just going to continue to monitor your pregnancy to just make sure that everything goes okay and none of them grow out of control and, do anything with the development and growth of the fetus. So the doctor said that it was really unusual that they would grow so quickly every time I got a new ultrasound done, because they were monitoring me very closely for the first time. It's probably because of all of the nutrients and excessive blood flow to the baby. It's also giving extra nutrients and blood flow to the fibroid. So as long as the baby's developing okay, they may shrink back down after you give birth. So once I gave birth, I did lose some weight. I asked, what could I do? At this time, I started to get a little bit nervous because and they're still not telling me that this is a condition that is going to progress and could possibly lead to surgical treatment. They didn't mention that. At that time, I just kept on, I got the routine ultrasounds. I gave birth to my son, and I asked them, what can I do? They said, well, there's no signs of shrinking. No signs of shrinking, and they were continuing to grow. But my periods were still normal, and I had no pain. They never told me how severe they could get. And not to mention that Black women have them more often or have more severe complications with them. However, because I am a health and wellness educator, as well as a fitness trainer and group fitness instructor, I dibble and dabble in all different types of health and wellness information, but it never really dawned on me until I started to have this issue, like, wait a minute, I'm not being told something, or these little things is growing and they're just gross, but why is this happening? I went ahead and researched ways that I can naturally treat my fibroids, since there was no medication and no other interventions being suggested to me. So I did my own natural homeopathic treatment. So what I did was, me being the fitness enthusiast that I am, I began to increase my fitness efforts and incorporate fibroid fighting lifestyle regimen with nutrition and diet and control. So I had to lose a lot of baby weight anyway. So I'm like, okay, for me, it wasn't difficult to adopt this or to go ahead and give it a try, because I'm already in the health and fitness, and I gain a lot of weight with my children when I have babies. And when I am overweight, my fibroids do grow. So when I lose the weight, just like with my first child and my second child, they shrink back down. So this time I'm like, okay, I have a lot going on. Always got some stressful stuff going on. And I got more and more and more. So I'm going to have to be more aggressive than my usual. So My diet, I included lots of fasting. I excluded lots of foods from my life that were things that, and if you look up how to eat for life or the fibroid nutrition diet, you will see a lot of these things that I did, which was, becoming gluten-free as much as possible. No red meat, no dairy. I limited sugars, simple sugars, alcohol, absolutely no processed foods whatsoever. Eat lots and lots of greens and only complex carbs. I tried to eat only like ancient grains and pasta that was made with either chickpea or lentils. Lots of things like hummus and things like that. All things that are good for you anyway. So my body looks amazing once I've lost the weight. They did shrink back down, so this was what happened, but I had to put myself under intense regimens. Like, I'm going to parties and I'm seeing things and I'm like, I can't eat them. And it became just a way of life as well. And they're like, Ada, she's on her fitness thing anyway. And I had that as my cover, as why, like, I'm doing this for a purpose. I'm into fitness and nutrition, but also I can't do it because I have an overactive uterus that, it makes you feel like kind of like it's taboo to talk about that. Also, not only just I'm the fitness, I can't have these things because my uterus is messed up. Like, that's kind of a real conversation to say. So, and I really wasn't hiding it, but no one really talks about periods, and stuff like that, and about your lady parts, what's wrong with your lady parts and why they're not working out right now. And, I'm like, actually, I'm gluten-free because, not only is it great for monitoring your weight, I have tumors growing in my uterus. Like, then it becomes a issue where people feel uncomfortable to talk about. So it wasn't like I was intentionally hiding it, but it just so kind of happened to be like at the same time in my life, I got back on my feet. My body looked amazing. The fibroid shrunk. I didn't have any protruding. But then COVID happened and the pandemic happened. And during this time, not only is that in a general stressful time period for the world, okay, I also was going through my own personal shutdown on a smaller scale within me and my own family, which was highly traumatic, okay? And so after getting the house renovated and everything during COVID, the housing market went crazy as well. If you guys can go down memory lane. So that's like 2020 and 2021. It's now 2024. So things started to get like crazy. And then with all of that instability and my mother being older, whatever, we got the renovations done to the house. She really liked it. So she decided that she didn't want to sell anymore. But that's not her decision only to make. So that's where the legal issues started to arise. I needed to move on with my new family and home. And we had decided to sell the house. And I refinanced the home in the purpose to sell the house. So what was the stress all over again? Some complete stress was triggering a lot of cortisol release. So I got my hormones done and a lot of stress hormone cortisol was releasing. So every time that I would have my fibroids grow rapidly, it was triggered by the stress and just all of the things that I had going on to overcome. All right. So that trauma to my body of me having to go with an illegal battle with my mother, which I was very, very close with and pretty close with the majority of my family. But now I became the family villain, trying to get my money back out of this house, and nobody wanted to go into refinancing it with her. Long story short, we did legal battles for it. At this time, that's still going on. So I still have that stress that I need to deal with. But anyway, it really did get to me having to continue to be resilient every single time. And I mention this because this happens a lot, especially with Black women. And especially with women in general, we think about everybody and everything, and we put it all first. And then we deal with ourselves and our needs later. And my body was just like, at this time, that my fibroid started to grow very rapidly, and the connection between the stress hormone cortisol, fibroids love that. They eat it up. And so they grow very rapidly. And I'm telling you that this has to be the connection. And they have a lot of research on the connection of fibroids and cortisol and stress triggering the growth of fibroids. And that has to be the major reason of why mine would grow so rapidly at certain times. So I also noticed that due to all of this stress, I started to try to compensate with me being completely estranged from my family, and started back drinking a little alcohol, right? So I started back drinking some wine. And then with that came me wanting comfort foods more often that I hadn't eaten in years. So it was like a drug to me to have those baked goods. And it wasn't even the worst things. They were like homemade baked goods. But if you ain't eating it at all and you start that back, it's that rabbit hole can come quick. So these things were going on at the same time with me coping with the loss of my family and them trying to make me into the villain. But anyway, it was like, I'm still going to go and take on in all of this and just keep going on with my daily life. I work as a teacher. I teach health and physical education during the day. I also do group fitness, where I have to be very vibrant, very alive, and not wearing the weight of my life on my face while I'm doing these things. And that also takes a lot to put on all of these hats when you are in pain and you don't know why and things are growing out of control. So I said to myself at this time, I didn't know that it was going out of control. I hadn't had this information yet, but I knew that I was becoming a little bit out of control. And so I started to gain this little fupa area. So I said, okay, this is it. Let me get out of this slump. Let me get myself back together. So it's 2022 into 2023. And so I got back in a very clean and lean state, did my detoxes and everything, but it stopped working. Nothing was working anymore. So I'm like, you know what it is? I turned 40. That's what it is. I'm in my 40s. Like, why am I tripping? I can't fight this. This what this little fupa is coming up because my metabolism is slowing down. And maybe I'm even going perimenopausal. My mom went through menopause early. Maybe I'm perimenopausal. So maybe that could be why all of these things is happening to me. So I said, it's just age. I'm not going to keep beating myself up. I'm doing a heck of a good job of taking care of myself despite all of the circumstances that I'm going through. And I just noticed that I kept gaining weight only in my abdomen area. So another year goes by, and I kept trying to do the same things that I was doing, fasting, doing my detox. I detox from all wines, all simple sugars, all of that, blah, 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 blah. And then I noticed some new things. Not only was the fupa getting bigger and growing up in my belly, and like I had a 4-pack before. I really have to work hard and deprive myself of everything to get that, to fight it. And working in the fitness industry, everybody looks at your tummy. You go from wearing big t-shirts all of a sudden, and you used to wear a little bra top when you teach your classes. People start to ask you like, "Oh, are you pregnant? When are you expecting?" Or they think that you fell off the wagon, and those type of whispers started to happen. And so I was really conflicted, fighting, trying to stop this. And I started to feel that there was something obstructing the pathway up my vajayjay. And so I said to my husband, do you feel a difference when, because I feel there's like an obstruction when I, go up in there, my fingers. So, do you feel something? And which he told me, no, I don't feel anything. Everything is just the same. Everything is just the same. And I come to find out that was a big old lie. And he thought by telling me a big old lie that was being helpful because he didn't want me to stress out and worry. And this is another key point that men do. So if you asking your man, like, say, be honest, because I need to know, do you feel something different? Do you feel a bulge? Do you feel like the pathway is being blocked or changed in some type of way? Because this is a big health concern. But he was like, no, I don't feel nothing. It's all the same. And he later told me, as things got worse, that he did feel something, but he didn't want to scare me or he didn't want to make me worry. But that's not helpful, because now I'm thinking, okay, I'm just tripping. But it started to get worse and worse. So then I knew I wasn't tripping. I said, okay, maybe you're not being in tune with my body enough, but I'm in tune with my body, and I know that it's a change. Along that time, I started to have to pee more and more frequent. Now, with my last son, I had a C-section. And so everybody knows after you have a C-section, sometimes your bladder, this area gets weak and you have to pee more often. But that having to pee often symptom never went away. My son is going to be 5 now. Why I have to pee all the time? And it got worse and worse and worse by the month. To the point where right before I had my surgery, I had to pee every 45 minutes. If I went to an hour, 1 minute past an hour, I'm peeing. No matter wherever I am, it is coming out. I cannot hold my bladder. And that really puts stress on your life. Like, I'm a teacher. I have classes. My blocks of classes is 80 minutes. And then my fitness classes, you have to be there 15 minutes before your class start, an hour during, and then 15 minutes after. But I couldn't. So I wound up starting to be not where I was supposed to be when I was supposed to be there. The stress of trying to get there, the stress of trying to get to the bathroom first, or if anything happens, I drink 1 ounce more than what I'm supposed to. Like, it was just a lot. And I'm like, why do I have to pee this much? This is a problem. So I thought that because I had an IUD in for birth control, that maybe my IUD had flipped around and was poking into my bladder, and maybe some scar tissue formed on the bottom. And that's what I was feeling. So I said, something is wrong. I spoke with my gyno about it, and they said, we'll schedule you for an ultrasound. So I went in for the ultrasound, and let me back up a little bit. Before the ultrasound, I had a car accident. So it was scheduled, it was going to be in 2 months. That was the closest that I could get it. It was like, whatever it is, just schedule it out. First, next available wasn't until 2 months. I got into a big car accident in between that time. So now I got physical stress on my body. Somebody hit me, swirled in, hit me, totaled my car, okay? My car insurance decided that even though I was not at fault of the accident, they weren't going to cover my policy. Because guess what? The situation with the house. I had to move. Yeah, I'm doing a lot, because what I'm trying to say, my key point is how the stress in our lives with the genetics can really, really interfere with how large and how quickly these fibroids go. So ladies, you can't just eat this. You have to deal with the stress and the problems in your life, because that connection between cortisol and fibroid growth, like I was saying, that's something that a lot of people's stories did not have. And I'm sharing my story because that is why the rapid growth, okay? That whole 1 centimeter per year thing did not happen for me. I was shrinking, doing all of that, growing back every time a traumatic event happened in my life. So with that being said, again, I'm dealing with some stuff. And then my insurance company denied my claim because guess what? My insurance policy and my license was at my primary residence, the home that I own. But me and my family and my husband, we moved out into a temporary apartment house. This is your home, so don't change anything. So out of advice of my lawyer, I thought it was going to be in the rental 6 months to a year tops between the case being resolved and getting the house on the market, and then me buying my permanent home, right? That didn't happen. End of that story. My permanent residence was in a suburban neighborhood. They said I was trying to steal insurance rates. Yeah. So because of that whole situation, I now have a debt of a car that for an accident that I didn't cause, which I was very hurt as well, physically as well, with lots of pain in my low back, in my abdomen. All of that was going on all at the same time. So I think that's physical stress to my body, as well as the emotional stress, shock and trauma, and the physical trauma pushed and shifted some of my fibroids around, as well as causing me more pain in my low back and my legs, because I have a big fibroid that was in the back, one in the front top pressing on my uterus, and the one in the back, almost the same grapefruit size, pressing down on my kidneys, causing me low back pain, which I thought was mainly due to the accident, but I think some shifting happened because of the whiplash of the accident, and then now that fibroid was sitting there causing me extra pain. So now, just want to go over the summary of what I had. So my fibroids, the biggest one was 11 centimeters. I had 5 to 6 centimeter size fibroids. So 11 centimeters is a grapefruit. And then 5 to 6 centimeters is the size of an orange. And then I had several, there was like too many to mention, grape size and almond size fibroids all throughout the uterus. And then the two big ones set like this, like side by side, front and back, like this. And then I had another one up top too. So two kind of in the front, one in near the back, and then a whole bunch of tiny grape side ones all around. And with that being said, the doctor, recommended surgical intervention. So what were my symptoms? I had a lot of low back pain, and I think that was synonymous with the accident at the same time, but I already had back pain before that. It just got worse. I had very long periods, and my periods would be unpredictable. They would just come on. I swear, anytime I had sex, it would come on, and I literally would not want to have sex. That's another symptom about it affects your sex life as well. Not want to have sex with my husband because I was afraid that my period would come on and I had something to do, and I did not want to be bleeding just to have sex with you. And that's a stressful situation to be in with itself. Intense bloating. My bloating was crazy when right before my period come on. I guess they get engorged with all that extra blood, and it's just out of control. I would look like 5 or 6 months pregnant some days, and people would look at me and stare like, I just saw her yesterday. How is this possible? Crazy fatigue that also dealt with like some depression symptoms where you just felt physically pain and depressed. Anemia, hair loss, hair thinning, tingling down my legs, indigestion, abdominal pain, frequent urination, and urgency of urination. So my intervention of choice was a hysterectomy. I chose to have a hysterectomy because for my life, it was the best option for me. It was hard. I've been otherwise pretty healthy, and I didn't want to give up my uterus. I'm pretty naturopathic type of person, and I really didn't want to give up my uterus. I felt like that's going to change, who I am as a woman. And the uterus is like, part of the gateways to your soul and spiritualness and all of that. And it was hard for me. But surgical treatment was the best option. No one explained to me when I first had my fibroids were smaller. No one explained to me that there were other options available out there. No one explained to me that there were minimal invasive options out there. There were medical treatments possible. No one said anything. No one said, they say, hey, they're small. They're not bothering you. They're not bothering me. That's how it was. And now my fibroids were too big to do anything other. Surgical options was it, either a myomectomy or a hysterectomy. And since I already had all my children and my husband, and I'm in my 40s, I'm also a fitness professional. So my physique and the way my body build is and the amount of energy that I need to have and appearance is also a part of my profession. I didn't want to have the risk of having these fibroids grow back and I have to go through with surgery again. So even though a myomectomy would allow me to save my uterus, with the history of how my fibroids grow, I'd rather just get the one surgery and done so that there is no possibility of them going back. And maybe the cortisol release will happen and trigger other types of things in my body, but I'm more aware of it now. And I deal with ways that I can handle stressful situations and don't compound them. And hopefully that will also help with me some more holistic things to deal with that. I don't want to worry about them going back. And so that's why I chose it. I have my family. I have my children. I'm not planning on getting any other children. And I don't want to, in 3, 4, 5 years, have to be like, guess what? They're back. And each time they come back, I get more symptoms and worse symptoms or something like that. I just want it to go on and be able to live and love my life. Last but not least is just talking about how I started to, get back into my life. And I after I spoke with, some people, I decided that, yes, the surgery, I have a couple of close friends that also had to have a surgery done. And so that helped me feel confident that I will come out on the other side. I don't like anesthesia and surgeries and all of that, but it is what it is. So I have some videos in this series that follows my surgery prep, that goes through surgery day, see me in the hospital, as well as my recovery days 1 through 3, days 5 through 7. I'm just over a week out now, and I'll be making my 2-week follow-up, after my 2-week visit, and reports from that, and probably a 4 or 6 week after that. So in conclusion, I'm not advocating for anybody to have a hysterectomy for your fibroid complications. It just wound up being the best thing for me because and where I am in my life. If I wasn't where I am in my life with my kids, my husband, my career, and everything that I needed, I may have chose a myomectomy, or I may have chose another minimally invasive procedure, although those weren't set out as a functionable option for me besides. So really only a myomectomy or hysterectomy were the main two, because my fibroids had grown so large and nobody said to me to treat them or any other intervention before time. I had several ultrasounds and somebody could have said to me before then. But because I wasn't complaining about excessive bleeding like crazy, or, being completely in pain all the time until they got very large. Some women have small ones, and this is their issue. And it all depends on where the fibroids are located, what symptoms you have. And maybe if I had those, it would have. But because oh, you're doing it, girl. Keep up those nutritional regimens. And that was it. And I don't think that was right. So anyway, ultimately, we all have to do and choose the thing that best suits us in our lives. I'm just over 1 week post-op, but at this point, I do not regret having a hysterectomy. It wound up being the best choice for me. And it feels good, I guess, to know that I have a long road to recovery, but it feels good to know that I no longer, when I'm all the way done with this, I no longer have to live my life around my fibroids. I no longer have to live my life around planning around my fibroids, planning my schedule around when I have to go to the bathroom, planning, if I can have a piece of birthday cake at a party, or if I have more than a glass of champagne, how will this make my fibroids grow? Like, that's a crazy amount of fear. And I don't have to live with fear no matter what I do to fight my condition, that my cortisol release and the stressful events that happen in my life and my genetic disposition to have this genetic trait in a situation that I can't control, that is a horrible condition that I didn't sign up for, but I inherited, and how my body responds to it is very aggressive. And I don't want to always have to live with that fear of my fibroids rapidly growing again if I would have chose a myomectomy. And so the best solution for me was to get a hysterectomy. And I am looking forward to getting my life back, getting back in shape, having energy, not having to go to the bathroom every 45 minutes, no back pain, being able to lift weights again. So I'm just looking forward to all of that, and really going into the rest of my 40s and into my 50s being the ultimate version of myself that I can be. So thank you so much for listening to my story, everyone. I hope this helped you. It was a little long. My recovery videos are not as long as these. I chopped them down to be 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes. And this, I think, is going to be a little longer than that. But this is Mocha Fitness signing off. Thank you, and God bless y'all. Goodbye.